The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Welcome to our show this evening. April 19th to the 25th is the 10th anniversary of Victims of Crime Week. Violence Prevention South and Central was granted funding from the federal government or the Federal Department of Justice to carry out an awareness campaign on violence for victims of crime. And this campaign is being completed in the partnership of Rogers Television, Status of Women Central, Victim Services, the CBC, and members of the Violence Prevention Initiative, as well as the Law Society. In our last program, we had a panel discussion on violence and its victims, and this evening we will tell you about some of the resources that are available in our area for victims of violence. And joining us again this evening are Connie Pike, and she is the Executive Director of the Coalition Against Violence in the Avalon East and an ex-RNC officer. We also have Lorraine Hearn, the Associate Director of Violence Prevention Central, Starlyn Shears from Victim Services, and she's the Regional Coordinator, and Jackie Thompson, the Executive Director of the Status of Women, and Brian Blackmore, a well-known retired lawyer in Grand Falls, Windsor. Good evening.
Good evening.
And again, expanding on our last talk, just want to tell people out there some of the resources, and there are a wealth of resources in central Newfoundland available for victims of crime. First of all, I guess we'll start with you, Jackie, and also Starlyn, and resources available for, in particular, victims of violence.
Well, Dave, when somebody comes to our office, they may be there just to talk. They may not want any help. They may just want a sounding board because they were so frustrated. But when they come in, they will tell us what the problem is. We give absolutely no advice. Sometimes you have to bite your tongue because you don't want to say, you know what, you should get out of that, because that's not our place. We find out what the person needs, what their family needs, and then what we can do to help. So it may be that they need a lawyer. It may need, they need some income support, some financial help. They may need to go to Lorraine for some help with violence prevention down at their office. We may send them to Starlyn if they're a victim of violence. It could be the RCMP. It could be the food bank. They may need some counseling, and we may do a referral to mental health and addictions. They may need some medical help, and we will go to the hospital with them if they want that. They may need housing. They may want to go back to school. Whatever they decide that they need, then we will try to help them get that, but we will not give any advice.
And when a woman calls your office, I can only imagine that it's got to be a huge step for them, isn't it?
Absolutely, because they know what their problem is. They've been dealing with it for so long. It takes a great deal of courage to go to a stranger and talk to them about what your issues are. And so we make them comfortable, give them coffee, pop. We always have chocolate, and we want them to feel at home so that they can be relaxed and see what we can do to help.
It's not an intimidating process.
I don't think so. I'm not intimidating.
And so, Starlyn, what about some other services available in our area?
Well, there's Cara House, a transition house and second stage housing in Gander, if someone is fearful for their safety and that of their children and need to flee their home. There's also Victim Services, my program, and I've been working with Victim Services for 23 years in rural Newfoundland and Grand Falls. And some of the services we can provide are information on the criminal justice system, referral to the RCMP if a person wants to lay a charge, the hospital, mental health services, advanced education and skills, Cara House, Newfoundland Labrador Housing, Child, Youth and Family Services, if a child is being victimized or a child has witnessed the violence, that's mandatory for everyone. I don't think that's been mentioned yet in this episode, but we have to refer to child welfare when children have been victimized or they've experienced violence. The Food Bank, Salvation Army, Committee Against Violence for Resources, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and of course the Women's Center. We do safety planning with women who are in domestic violence situations or partner abuse situations when they fear for their safety. And part of safety planning is developing a set of networks that they would call upon if they're getting at the tension phase and they feel they're at risk of abuse now. And court preparation, court support for trials and sentencing hearings, requests for testimonial aids for children when they have to testify in court, assistance with preparation of a victim impact statement. Sometimes a person doesn't want to go to the police and press charges, so some other options that we can assist with are emergency protection orders or peace bonds. And an emergency protection order is put in place to help women and children stay in their home and have the abusive partner leave the home. So they don't have to flee. They can stay in the home until the police investigate. Usually it's a 90-day emergency protection order until safety planning can be completed. So that's something fairly new. For children, we have a lot of services for children as witnesses. Victim Services does not work with children unless a charge is laid. We arrange meetings with the Crown Attorney before trial, liaison with community groups like Lorraine's and Jackie's. Refer to a victim liaison officer if someone is sentenced and the victim wants to know when a person is going to be released from prison or parole, because victims can still have a right through that process, parole hearings. Travel to court, I go to Bayvert and had a Bay to spare, so I go on court circuits. So the services aren't only available in Grand Falls, Windsor. But we're not an emergency 24-hour crisis center. We have to rely on the hospital, the mental health crisis line, and service for sexual assault victims for that, and the social workers. And we don't provide services for family court, separation, and child custody, just criminal law.
So, Lorraine, it seems like there are so many services available and so many different places to go. If there is a person at home now tonight watching this, where would you suggest they call first? Because to have a long list of numbers is great,
Absolutely.
but even to call one of them has to be a huge step.
Absolutely.
So where do you go first?
Yeah. Certainly, again, you know, I can say practically that we provide a lot of the services pretty much the same. If somebody is in trouble at home and needs to speak to an RCMP officer, my advice would be to call an RCMP officer. If you're not comfortable with that, the Women's Centre or Violence Prevention Initiative, a community-based organisation, which we have several of, that we work in partnerships, we all work together. So it may be that it's the Exploits Community Centre on Bartle Place here in Grand Falls. It may be the Exploits Valley Community Coalition, Canadian Mental Health. It could be anybody that you are comfortable reaching out. But there is a lot of confusion of what to do first. Our first priority is safety. If you're in a very dangerous situation, RCMP, the Transition House in Gander, for sure, because our services actually are from 9 to 5, 8:30 to 5. We have a victim information card or phone number that we're going to have these numbers on cable after this show. Certainly they are in the phone book. There's crisis lines. You can go into the hospital if you need to be. You know, if it's somebody of a First Nations, there's a First Nations Justice Department. Starlin's just shown me that now there's a phone number for them. And is that in Conriver?
Yeah, that's specific to people in Conriver.
Yeah. So we work, Dave, we work closely with health, You know, my first contact with a victim would be, of course, are you safe and what about the children? And you know, if there are children, we would call Child Youth Family Services and work together. But I would also call Central Health and to see if this person could get some, you know, some connected with somebody to do some counseling. We will want to connect them with law or legal aid or somewhere where they can get help. It's based on what their need is at the time. It could be income support.
So what I get from that is the main thing is that you reach out, period.
Reach out to somebody who, it could be your church minister. We are very well connected with our partners in this region. We cover the Central West region, which is from Nora's Arm to Bay Vert Peninsula, all areas in between, and the south coast of Bays. So we cover 92 communities, you know, and we do have satellite offices working with us in those partnerships. So reach out to somebody who's comfortable for you. My biggest message is if you happen to reach somebody who you don't feel comfortable with and you feel that they're not responding to you right, hang up the phone and please call someone else. It's very difficult to say who the first one should be, you know, but in the event that there's danger, immediate danger, by all means, RCMP or get yourself to the hospital.
And if that first phone call is to the police, Connie, how intimidating would that process be?
Well, most people in the first instance wouldn't call the police. That's kind of a last resort. They'll report just about anywhere else, and there's help available on numerous crisis lines for folks. But as Lorraine mentioned, the key word is safety. And if you're really, really in danger, if the danger is imminent, you need to pick up the phone and call, you know, if 911 is in your area, or the local police detachment. Just you need to reach out. That's the important feature.
And Brian, and if the police are involved and there are charges laid and the matter finds its way into court, a lot of people might think, well, I can't afford a lawyer. I don't know what the legal process is, and they would be intimidated by that. What kind of services are there in the legal world for victims of violence?
Well, in regard to lawyers, there always is, if there's any issue and you don't have money enough to hire a lawyer, legal aid is available certainly in the central region. There's been an office here for many years, and they have contacts with all of the potential other provincial social assistance agencies, so that they definitely would be a place to turn if you need legal assistance. And relative to legal assistance, a lot of times, again, I think people have gone beyond the moment of making contact with the various agencies and organizations that Lorraine and Connie and Starlin have spoken to, because I think if you go to a lawyer, at that point it's actually a more formal circumstance. You actually make an appointment, no matter what kind of lawyer it is, so that you've already made some pretty important decisions. It's just that following from that, there are some potential legal consequences that you need to make sure you're informed of and protected by, so that seeking that kind of professional help after those initial decisions are made makes good sense. And certainly I never did any substantial amount of criminal law practice, but I definitely had a large family law practice. And even though it might not have been violent circumstances as it is with potential criminal charges, there is a kind of abuse when people feel that they have not been treated fairly, and as a result a relationship disintegrates and they're looking for legal help in that context. So that definitely in common sense, there are lots of lawyers that you can look up, and if you've made some of those other larger decisions, well, the lawyer seems to me a pretty easy one.
And
I just wanted to add one point. I don't think we gave a lot of information for seniors who might be victims of abuse, or if you know a senior who you feel can't speak for themselves anymore. There's more resources available now. For example, National Office for Victims of Seniors. There is an Office of the Citizens Representative, 1-800-559-0079.
Centre in St. John's fields calls from all over the province as well.
We're going to have those numbers running
Yeah.
after this show.
And, you know, it's important to call someone. If you call a crisis line, the person on the other end of the phone will know the resources that are available to you depending on your needs. So just make that one call to someone. And the other piece I'd like to mention, just to piggyback on something Brian said, was about the Family Violence Intervention Court. It was held for a trial period for 4 years in this province. It was working well. It dealt with the families in a holistic fashion, dealt with them in terms of reconciliation and hope and help and repair. And we lost that court, and we desperately need it back for the entire province.
Absolutely.
Again, folks, great information about the resources available to victims of violence in our area, and I'd like to thank you very much for being here on the 10th anniversary of National Victims of Crime Awareness Week.